All right, we're looking at inequalities in Algebra 2 today. We're going to start off with this. X is less than 3. We don't know what x is, but we know it's less than 3. Now, one thing we can do is we can draw this on the number line. Here's 0, and right here's 3. Okay? So, it's less than, which means it's going this way. So we're going to have an arrow going this way like this. I should have got a different color. And then right here, we're going to have a parenthesis because it does not include 3. If it had the equal to line, we'd put us a bracket there, which means it includes the 3. But this is how we draw it as an inequality, or as a graph. Now, in an interval, we call this interval notation. All right, in interval notation, you have a low, comma, and you have a high. This is the low, this is the high. All right, the lowest this goes, we'll see it goes forever, so it goes that way to negative infinity. Just goes to negative infinity forever, so that's my low, negative infinity. And we put a parenthesis on that because that's a value you never do get to. The high is this 3 right here. 3 is the high, and it's not included, so I put a parenthesis on it. If it was included, I put a bracket. All right, we'll go to this one because, see, it's got the equal to line. So if I graph this one on the number line, all right, here's 0, or here's 5, okay? All right, it's greater than 5, which means it goes this way forever. So we have an arrow going this way, and it includes 5, so I'm gonna put a bracket right there at the 5. And so there's what my graph looks like. It includes 5, so I put the bracket. See the difference between this one? It did not include that one because it didn't have the equal to line, so I put the parenthesis. This includes it, so I put the bracket. And it goes from 5 to infinity. All right, now if I draw an interval for that, all right, I'm gonna have a bracket with my 5. I'm gonna have infinity, because this thing goes to infinity, goes forever, with a parenthesis. Infinity and negative infinity always have parentheses. Okay, all right, here's one here. X is greater than negative 2. All right, here's my number line, here's 0, here's negative 2. All right, it does not have equal to line, so we're gonna put a parenthesis, and it's greater than, which means it's gonna be going this way with the arrow. Okay, and so there's what my graph looks like. Now my interval would be this. Negative 2 is the low, and infinity is the high. Okay, now on this one, all right, x is between these two values. All right, so if I draw my number line, here's 0. I got negative 2 here, I got 5 here. And notice how there's an equal to for the negative 2, which means it's going to have a bracket at the negative 2. At the 5, it does not have the equal to line, which means it does not include 5, so I put a parenthesis. And then it's going to be a line connecting them like that. Now, if I do the interval on it, the interval looks like this. Negative 2 is the low, 5 is the high, and that's how it would be as an interval. Okay. Here's another one. All right, my number line looks like this. Okay, here's 0, here's negative 4, here's 1. And you see negative 4, it does not equal negative 4, so I'm gonna have a parenthesis, and it goes all the way to 1, and here's, I'm gonna have a bracket because it does equal the 1. And so there's what my graph will look like. And my interval will look like this. Negative 4 is the low, 1 is the high, and I put a bracket. All right, so that's plain and simple on how you graph these and stuff. Now let's look at some that need to be simplified. See this one here, I want to get the interval notation and the graph for it, but I got to simplify it first. All right, so we just pretend it's an equation. Like, see, if this was equals right here instead of an inequality, I put my separator line here, so I'm going to have to subtract 5 on both sides, which 5 minus 5 would go away. And so I have negative 3x greater than or equal to 6. All right, now I divide by negative 3, and that would cancel. And so x over here, this would be negative 2, but see, here's the thing. Right there, when you divide by a negative, like we just did right here, we divided both sides by negative 3. Negatives go backwards, and so that's going to change my inequality the other way. It still has an equal to line under it, see, but instead of greater than, now it's a less than. And you have to remember this. Whenever you divide by negative or multiply too, if you multiply by negative, it changes your inequality the other way. If it's not negative, it won't do anything. It just stays the same. So here's my inequality. Now if I draw the number line here, here's 0, here's -2. It's less than or equal to, so I'm going to have a bracket, and the arrow will be going this way. So there's what the graph would look like. And my interval, well, the lowest it could go is -infinity. The highest is -2, and I got the bracket because it's got the equal to line. So that's how I graph it and how I do the interval notation. Okay, here's one here. And notice we got x's on both sides. Now, I'm going to minus 3x on both sides to make this go away because we want the x's over here on this side. When we do an inequality, if you have your inequality, like suppose you have this 5 is less than x, and the x is over here on the right side, this is no good because it makes us misunderstand what x is. See, if you have 5 is less than x, a lot of people would say, well, 5 is less than x, x could be 4, which is wrong. See, you see 5 less than x, you think it's got to be less than, but it's not. See, if x is 4, is 5 less than 4? No. And so if your x is over here on this side, it causes you to make mistakes. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to do this. We want the x's to be over here. So when I subtract 3x, it gives me this. And now I can add the 3, which makes that go away, and 2x is greater than 10. And then I can divide by 2, and x is greater than 5. There's my inequality. We want the variable on the left side. Now, if I draw my number line, all right, here's 0, here's 5. X is greater than 5, which means it's going to go this way, but it does not equal to it, so I'm going to put a parenthesis right here. And that's how I graph it. And my interval for that, the low is 5, and the high would be infinity because it goes forever. So that's what it would look like. Here's another one. Okay. So if I solve this one again, I'm going to add 5x because when you have an inequality, you want your variable over here on this side. So we want to get rid of it from that side. So that's going to give us -3 plus 5. That'd be a 2x plus 2 is less than or equal to 14. And so I'm going to minus 2 on both sides. And that means 2x is less than or equal to 12. And then I divide by 2, which means x is less than or equal to 6. So there's my inequality right there. All right, if I graph that, here's 0, here's 6. X is less than 6, which means my arrow goes this way, less than. It points to the left. And I'm going to have a bracket right here because it does equal 6. So that's what the graph will look like. And if I do my interval for that, the lowest it'd be is -infinity. The highest it could be is 6, and I put the bracket on it. And that's how I do the interval notation. Okay. All right, here's one here. It's kind of similar. We've got to distribute here, so we've got 15x plus 9. That's greater than, or if I distribute, that's going to give me a 12x, and that's going to give me a 6. Okay, and now it's just like the previous problem. All right, so I'm going to have to minus 12x on both sides to get rid of them from the right side. We want them on the left. That's going to be 3x plus 9 greater than 6. And now I can subtract 9. So 3x is greater than -3, and then I divide by 3. And I got x is greater than -1. There's my answer right there. All right, so if I do the number line, here's 0, here's -1. X is greater than -1, which means the arrow's going this way, greater than. And it's going to be a parenthesis because it does not equal -1. See, it doesn't have the equal to, so I've got to put the parenthesis, which means my interval, the low is -1 and the high is infinity. Because the low is -1 and the high it goes to forever to infinity. Okay, now here's one here a little different. See how my variable's here? And we've got 2 inequalities. Now suppose this wasn't here. If this wasn't here on this side, 2x plus 7 is less than 3, I would minus 7 on both sides. But because I have this over here, I also have to minus 7 over there. So I have to minus 7 from all 3 of them. Now here, -5 minus 7 is -12. right, the equal to line, there's a 2x here and the 7s are gone. Here's a less than, and right here 3 minus 7 is -4. Okay, now suppose I still didn't have this right here, I would just divide by 2 on both sides. Okay, and that would get rid of my 2's here and simplify it, but I do have this side, and I'm gonna have to divide by 2 on it too. So I divide by 2 on all 3 of them. Right here, when I divide by 2, I get -6. Right here, that cancels, I just have x. And then right here, I've got a -2. And there's my finished product for the inequality, which means on the number line, all right, here's -6, here's -2, and it's between those two. It includes the 6, the -6, so I'm gonna have to put the bracket over here, but on this one, I just put the parentheses. So there's my graph. And the inequality would look the same way. You got the bracket, the -6, and you got the parentheses on the -2. That's my interval notation. Here's a similar one. Okay, so like I've got these two inequalities, so I'm at the -4 on all 3 of these, like I did just on the previous problem. All right, so this is a less than right here. That's a -15. This goes away, so I have the -3x. And then this is going to give me a 6. Okay? Now I got to divide by -3 on all these. All right, when I divide by -3, this cancels. I have x here. On this side, that's going to be a 5. On this side, that's a -2. Okay, but I messed up here drawing my inequalities because when I divide by a negative, as we talked about earlier, see my notes from a while ago, if you divide by a negative, you got to flip your inequality. And so actually these should have been this way. I messed up. See, whenever you divide by negative, you got to change your inequalities the other way. Okay, now from this, we don't want our inequalities to be greater thans. Usually we have our lowest one and we have our highest one with less thans. So it means I just switch them. I just put the -2 on this side, I put the 5 on that side, and then I can turn these around. Okay, because see, -2 is less than 5. See, 5 is greater than -2, so I switch them around, -2 is less than 5. This is the way this reads. And so there's my finished product right there for the inequality. Now, here's my number line, here's 0, here's -2, here's 5. All right, so it's going to be from -2 to 5 and everything in between. So there's what my graph looks like. And then here's my interval, the low and the high. Okay, and there's one more here. Now this is one, this causes a lot of people to have trouble because it's got the fractions here. But here's a little trick. See your 5 and your 9, all right? 5 times 9 is 45. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by 45. There's a parenthesis right there. I'm going to multiply both sides by 45. Now, here's what happens. When I multiply by 45, I'm dividing by 5. So if I do 45 divided by 5, that's a 9. And so I just have 9 times this. So I distribute. 9 times 3x is 27x. 9 times 7 is 63. And so there's what it comes out to with no fraction part at all. Over here, when I do it, 45 divided by 9 is 5. And then times 16 is 80. And there you go. So look at this again. I multiply both sides by 45. What I do on this side, 45 divided by 5 is 9. So these cancel, and I have 9 times this, which gives me that. When I multiply over here, 45 divided by 9 is 5. So these cancel, and I have 5 times this, which is 80. And now this is just the same as other ones we've done. We have to minus 63 on both sides first. That'll go away. So I have 27x is less than, let's see, what is that, 17? And then divide by 27. And x is less than, or 17 over 27. If I draw my number line, okay, here's 0. Right here's 17 over 27. X is less than that, so I'm going to have an arrow that's going this way with a parenthesis here. It does not equal, so it's a parenthesis. Oh, I got it off a little bit. And then my interval for that, the lowest is -infinity, the highest is 17 over 27 with the parenthesis, and that's my interval notation. Okay, so that's inequalities from Algebra 2. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to help you all I can. Have a good rest of the day.